Foxy Brown arrives in Miami to rescue her sister from a life of prostitution and winds up taking down Barton Fink. This sounds like the best blaxploitation film never made. Rites of Passage was written by Daniel Pine and directed by David Anspaugh, and it's got a pretty solid plot that I feel like diving right into. Here goes. A beautiful young woman named Diane, played by Tery Ferman, is picked up on the beach by a sleazebag named Lyle, who is played by David Thornton, who has the tremendous good fortune of being married to Cyndi Lauper. Lyle takes Diane out for a champagne lunch, then takes her to a fabulous party. On Miami Vice, champagne is always the gateway beverage to unspeakable decadence and depravity, which rings pretty true to my real-world experience. The party's host is a sleazebag named David Traynor, who is played by the always wonderful John Turturro, star of Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, and count 'em, four Transformers films. Under the guise of offering Diane a modeling career, Traynor successfully recruits her to join the ranks of his string of high-priced call girls. Lest you think there's been any coercion or tomfoolery involved, Diane is fully on board with this change of plans. We get a montage, scored to Rockwell's second-best song, Change Your Ways, of Diane shopping for a bunch of very fancy outfits and living her best cocaine-fueled life. When one of the women working for Traynor is murdered, Vice launches an investigation into his operations. They're joined by visiting NYPD detective Valerie Gordon, who is Diane's sister and Tubbs's ex-flame. Valerie is played by Pam Grier, legendary star of 1970s blaxploitation films like Coffee and Foxy Brown, who experienced a career renaissance in the late 90s by playing the title role in Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown. Valerie has been searching for her wayward sister for 6 months. Her quest has led her to Miami, where she engages in a bit of multitasking by rekindling her romance with Tubbs while continuing her investigation. You know how Crockett has his long-term undercover identity as drug runner Sonny Burnett? In this episode, we get the first appearance of Tubbs's long-term undercover identity as Burnett's partner in crime, Rico Cooper. While undercover, Burnett and Cooper lead lifestyles filled with expensive cars, expensive clothes, and all kinds of decadence. Switek and Zito have long-term undercover identities as well. They're exterminators. There's a cruelly funny idea in there that the good detectives get rewarded with all of these cool, glamorous undercover identities, while the incompetent ones end up with crap assignments. Alas, this episode decides to go as broad as possible with this concept. Switek and Zito burst into one of Traynor's fancy parties to take secret surveillance video of the guests, and wackiness ensues. They fumigate everything in sight and insult the party guests and draw a boatload of attention to themselves. Miami Vice, we've had this conversation before. I don't want to have to tell you again about zany subplots. While watching the surveillance tapes, Valerie spots Diane on the arms of a diplomat, Marquez, who is played by Mario Ernesto Sanchez, who holds the distinction of appearing in 5 different Miami Vice episodes as 5 different characters. Unless I discover otherwise, I'm going to consider that the record. Well done, Mr. Sanchez. Crockett, Tubbs, and Valerie visit Marquez, who has diplomatic immunity and can't be arrested, but out of sympathy for Valerie, he offers to help her find her sister. So Crockett and Tubbs crash another of Traynor's endless parties and locate Diane. It seems like Crockett and Tubbs have a couple of options here. They could talk to Diane privately and tell her that her sister's very worried about her and hope she comes with them, or if they're worried she's in imminent danger from Traynor, who, after all, is a murderer, they could arrest her for solicitation or drug possession just to extract her from a bad situation. Instead, they opt to forcibly drag a kicking and screaming Diane out of the party, then dump her off at rehab against her will. Diane's not a minor. Valerie mentions early on that she recently graduated, and even if your intentions are good, it seems like you really shouldn't forcibly scoop up adults at a party, sling them over your shoulder, and drop them off at rehab. Diane calls Traynor from rehab to thank him for all he's done for her, but to tell him that she's decided to return to New York with Valerie. Traynor sends Lyle to the clinic to kill her in a sequence scored to Foreigner's second best song, I Wanna Know What Love Is. Foreigner's best song is, of course, That Was Yesterday. But I didn't even have to tell you that, did I? There's no evidence linking Traynor or Lyle to Diane's murder, so Vice can't arrest him. So a gun-toting Valerie goes vigilante and heads to Traynor's apartment. Before Crockett and Tubbs can stop her, she shoots Traynor and Lyle. Plenty of music in this episode. In addition to Rockwell and Foreigner, we also get Bob Seger's Come to Papa, which plays in the opening while Diane wanders on the beach. This episode also uses 3 songs from relatively obscure new wave group The Reds, who were a favorite of Miami Vice creator Michael Mann. Waiting for You plays while Lyle wines and dines Diane, and Till the End and Beat Away play at Traynor's various parties. Mann would also use music from The Reds in his films Manhunter and Band of the Hand. This is so close to being a standout episode. It's beautifully shot, the story is strong, and the guest stars are top-notch. It just misses in a couple of areas. The scene with Switek and Zito is way too slapsticky and silly, and the scene where Valerie, Tubbs, and Crockett forcibly haul Diane out of the party and dump her off at rehab seems like a blunder. Nothing too egregious, but it's going to prevent this episode from moving up and out of the Three Flamingo range. In other words, it's a perfectly respectable, but not altogether remarkable episode. Next week, we'll see Tubbs taken hostage in an abandoned building along with a very young Ving Rhames and a very young Garcelle Beauvais, and it'll be up to Crockett and a very young Joe Morton to save him. Until then, please subscribe to my channel to keep on top of all new videos, and I will see you later. Thank you very much for joining me. Goodbye.